Hey, in today's video, I'm going to crumb coat a 10-inch round cake and a 6-inch round cake that I'm later going to make into a 2-tier birthday cake. But in this video, we're just going to focus on getting those ready to ice and getting them crumb coated and prepared for the final coat of icing. So here, I just have a serrated knife and I am just taking off any little bits or crusty pieces on that chocolate cake that I don't want to show through onto my icing. And then I've got a 12-inch board there for that 10-inch round cake, and that's a little bit of just plain simple syrup to make sure it stays nice and soft. This cake was being picked up and then driven for about 3 hours to its final venue, and then I think it actually was going to sit for several more hours before it was actually cut and eaten, so I wanted to make sure that it stayed nice and fresh. So this is just a traditional crusting buttercream that I'm using, and that's what I wanted for their filling. You could also use a ganache or a chocolate buttercream, or my favorite, peanut butter icing as your filling. And I'm just applying a thin coat, making sure it's even all the way across, and then adding that other layer of chocolate cake. And I like to do the crust side, so like the cut part of the cake where I leveled it, facing in, just so there's less crumbs when I go to ice that. And I just apply my crumb coats with an angled cake spatula. You can do it any way you want. This is what works for me. And I do just add a little bit on there, go back, add some to the top, and then I use a scraper, just like you would for your final coat of icing, just to make sure there's a nice even coat before I place it into the refrigerator to chill for about 30 to 40 minutes before I apply my final coat of icing. And as I'm pulling that icing towards the center of the top, just to make sure it's a nice clean edge, I do notice that one side's a little lower than the other, like it's slightly off. So I go back and I add just a little bit of icing with my cake spatula and then smooth that back out again, just to give myself a nice level top, because this is going to be a tiered cake and you don't want to set the top tier on top of a bottom tier that is not level and ready to be stacked. Now for the 6-inch round cake, I am putting that on a 6-inch round board so that you don't see the edges of my cake board, which means that's why I have to put it on a larger plate. That little acrylic clear plate that you see there underneath my cake board is how I'm going to move it around and maneuver it until it's ready to be stacked. It makes your life a lot easier and doesn't get a lot of icing onto your turntable. And I'm doing the same thing. I am carving each tier to make sure that it's nice and smooth, and then I am adding my buttercream to the center, and then I'm going to stack and scrape the cake just as I did the 10-inch round. And for the smaller cake, I did switch to a smaller cake spatula, again with the angled spatulas. It just makes your life a lot easier and keeps your hands out of the icing. But I don't like the smaller cake spatulas on the larger cakes for some reason. I know a lot of people that use these small ones on all size cakes. They think it's easier to manage, but I just prefer the larger cake spatulas for most of my cakes. And then I use the smaller ones on 6-inch and 5-inch rounds that I do from time to time. Now this tier and the other tier are both in the fridge cooling until they're ready to be iced. I hope this helped, and please subscribe.